right. Hopefully some of you are starting to log into our camp meeting. I want to kind of, as you're coming in, direct you to some places that will be useful to you during our time. So obviously, YouTube, we can't interact. If you have a question throughout, you can come over to kind of your comment bar, and I'll type something over there real quick, and you can type in a question. And I'll try and answer them as we go if it's something that's come up to the best of my ability. During this time, if you don't know me, my name is Lane. I'm the student pastor here at First Baptist Marble Falls that'll be taking your kid to camp. This is our new associate student pastor, Scarlett.
Hey, guys.
She is actually who you'll be seeing and working with at Checkin on Friday at 12:30 is when Checkin will begin. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that and what that's going to look like, because I will already be out at camp, which is at Latham Springs, about 2.5 hours from here. And so I'll talk us through a lot of the camp stuff. So we'll talk kind of the what to bring a little bit. We'll talk about clothing policies. We'll talk about some of the rules and what can get you sent home and how to avoid those things. We'll talk about medications, what to expect while we're out there, and just kind of some hacks to make your way through camp for your student. But first, what I'll do is I'll just let Scarlett talk us through Checkin and a little bit of what that's going to look like on Friday.
Yeah, so whenever you guys come, we would like you guys to be here about 12:30. And so you'll come. Whenever you come, you can come to if you're looking at the church, the right side of the church, closer to our office side, because we'll be using one of the rooms that you guys can enter through. And so you'll come, you'll have your luggage with you. Parents, we ask that you follow your kid all the way through Checkin just in case we need something from you. And so you'll come. The first thing you'll do is someone will be there to bag your luggage, or to tag it, sorry. And so they'll put like a wristband around it. They'll take it from you, and you'll get assigned which van that you'll be in for that day. So we'll have multiple vans going. So it's already pre-assigned by grade of where you'll be. So you get assigned that, and then you'll walk in the room. So when you walk in the room, this is when you want to have all your paperwork done. And so we'll have extra copies for you there just in case you didn't get to fill one out. But you'll hand them. There'll be different individuals just standing there waiting for you to hand them to you. And from there, you're going to go to a just quick COVID screening. All they're doing is taking your temperature, and you'll sign a form that'll go along with it. And so from there, that's it. And then you go. We'll have like a room that you guys can wait in. And so it'll be important at this time that everybody waits until we all say it's okay to go get in the vans or get in the buses. You're not going to go there ahead of time, but we will all go to camp together. And so we'll wait for all you guys, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, parents, if you guys can stay with your kid all throughout, just in case if we need a signature or something from you, and it'll be pretty easy peasy at that point.
Yes, yeah, and especially parents, make sure, even if you're sitting here and you're like, I am so 100% confident that I have all of those forms turned in, just come in and make sure and double check, because sometimes it's not uncommon in the midst of all of the crazy camp paperwork, which I hate just as much as you do, that in the midst of that, you may forget to sign like one line. And there's nothing worse than getting a phone call or having to fax paperwork up to camp. And it just makes our beginning to camp so much easier when we have all that squared away. And so just come in, double check with them real quick, make sure that they get on their way, give your kid a kiss on the forehead, and then they're ours for a few days. And you can go do all the crazy things that you've got lined up without them.
And at that time too, we'll talk more about it later, but if you have medication, you'll bring it at that time. So we'll take care of it during check-in. We'll explain that later, but that's when you'll give it to us.
Yes. So let's go ahead and talk medication. This is kind of maybe one of the more difficult parts of camp every year. If you noticed on your registration form, there's a little slot where you have to fill out any medication that your child may be taking. And this includes pretty much anything and everything. So it is state law that we have to turn those medications in. Everything that is listed on a form must be turned into the camp nurse's office. Now, this is the moment that a lot of times this is maybe your kid's first time away from home, or this is a growing up experience youth camp is for them. So youth camp's a little bit more free roaming, which means that every kid is accountable to taking their medication on their own and when they can. That first night, we'll kind of remind them like, hey, if you need to go take your medicine before bed, or wake them up in the cabin. but we do not ask our leaders to keep a detailed schedule of every kid's medication when they need to take it. So that's something that you're going to need to cover at home, and make sure that your kid is equipped to be able to go to the nurse's office when they need to, and to take care of that. But make sure that every single thing that was listed on a form is going to go into like a gallon-sized plastic baggie. Take a Sharpie, write the name of your camper on there, what medication is in there, and when they take it. And we will have extra Sharpies and baggies and all that for them when they turn that in, but everything that goes on that form needs to go to the nurse's office, which means you can do with that information whatever you will. Just know that if you have any medication in your bag, even if you didn't write it on your form or whatever it is, sometimes the state comes in and checks, and it's super random. Some years I've been there and they have, and some years they haven't. It's just not great if they catch your kid with medication in their bag. So just know that's how medication policy works. For inhalers, a lot of times we get asked questions for that, or EpiPens and stuff like that. Traditionally, the policy has been 1 to the nurse's office and 1 on your kid's person, and those sorts of things. Our adult leaders are not allowed to give kids Tylenol, ibuprofen, all that kind of stuff. If they're feeling a little under the weather, they'll have to go to the nurse and get that stuff themselves. And so just so you kind of know how that works, that's the law. That's not our rules. That's policy that we follow. If you need to refill out any paperwork with that knowledge of medication stuff, feel free to email one of us and we can get you that, or just fill out a new one when you get here and we'll just replace that right in the middle of their file. Any food allergies, you should have gotten the paperwork for that in an email that they can fill out, and they'll have a separate line at camp for them to be able to go to. Luckily, last year was a COVID year and we didn't get a salad bar and things like that. So if your kid has gluten allergies or things like that, the salad bar will be back this year. So it's a little bit easier to navigate the food line and to work through that in some ways. So that'll be back and available to them. Clothing policies, we get a lot of questions on sometimes. Camp Collide is actually fairly relaxed compared to most camps. We have a few church policies that we like to follow in cabins. And so as far as at camp, girls and guys, no crop tops, wear a full length shirt that fits like a shirt. And that's pretty much like the only major one around camp. We always get asked about tanks. You can wear tank tops if you want. Guys, don't wear the ones that have like a giant hole in the side that makes it where you're not like even wearing a shirt at all. It just kind of looks like a front and back cape with a little connection on the ends. Guys do have to wear shirts down to the lake. They don't have to wear them at the lake, but they do have to wear them down to the lake. They'll be asked by staff, by directors, if they're walking down to the lake without a shirt on, to put a shirt on. Girls have to wear one pieces or cover-ups when they're down at the lake. That's a camp policy that we just follow of theirs. Inside cabins, this is a big one. We try and follow what we basically call like our ultra modesty policy. And so what that means is in a cabin, these are cabins where we'll have like 35 to 40, students, and these are big cabins. And so you're in there with your friends, you're in there with other people. We ask kids that they get changed in the shower. And so they go into the shower with clothes on, they change while they're in there, and then they come out with clothes on. So not like old school locker room mentality where guys are just walking around the cabin or whatever it is, or you're getting changed at your bed. And we do that just because we live in a day and a time in a world where we just don't know what anybody may be struggling with. And the best possible way that we can love people is just to follow that easy policy in the way that we change in the cabins, which also means that we just ask when you go to sleep at night that you wear some sort of clothing when you go to bed at night too. So guys, not just walking around in boxers, make sure you throw a pair of shorts on or whatever it is. And we do that out of respect and love for one another, and where we're all at in this world trying to figure out what it looks like to walk with Jesus and who he may be in our lives. So that's a little bit on the clothing policies and how that plays out at camp and what will be asked of them. None of those are necessarily like send home offenses. They'll just be conversations with one of our youth staff or one of our volunteers that are there. We have multiple pastors and some of our staff that are going to be there, which is a really exciting thing. As far as things that can get really difficult and can maybe be a reason to get sent home, some rules we have are like, obviously, no weapons, guns, knives, no fireworks, no pranking equipment, so shaving cream or anything like that. Any prank that takes place will be an automatic send home. We will not have a conversation in mornings. That'll just be a, hey, send home. So parents, sit down and talk with their kid. Like, we're going to camp to accomplish something totally different. And we don't want pranking or bullying or anything to ruin anybody's experience for us at camp. And so it's a 2.5-hour drive, which means if that's something that happens at 2 a.m., that's a 2 a.m. Phone call that you're getting and a drive that you're making. So make sure that you sit down with your kid and just really explain to them, hey, no pranking, no bullying, no guys and girls cabins, no girls and guys cabins. That'll get you sent home pretty automatically too. No wandering off site or being somewhere in the middle of the night or sneaking around in the middle of the night. We have security that roams through camp and checks on all that. And so all of those are things that are like what we call third level offenses that'll get them sent home automatically. So just have those conversations and be aware of that if you get a phone call through camp and you're coming to get your kid, know that it's something in light of that and that's a rule that we kind of have in place. And also know that I have not had to do that in the last 4 years. We have a pretty awesome group. We have a ton of kids. Camp is always a great time where our group comes together. They grow closer to Jesus. Kids meet Jesus for the first time, and they just take steps in their faith. And it is my favorite time of the summer to get to see them do that. And so just have confidence in that. And we're so incredibly excited to just see what the Lord does. On a couple notes that are kind of just outside of necessarily rules, but I'll just give you like some advice, some tips in packing. One, make sure that your kid has a water bottle. It is already hot as sin in Texas. And so if you can have a water bottle, there's water stations around camp that they can keep filled, remind them to keep it filled. There's a snack stand where they can buy Gatorade and stuff like that. So send them with some money for a snack stand. Some of them will want to buy merch. You can send them money with that. Sometimes the band sells merch or the camp will sell merch or whatever it is. But definitely send them with a water bottle. There is fishing and stuff. If your kid wants to fish, they can bring their own fishing equipment. They're able to pack that with them. We'll let them do that. There's disc golf on site. They can bring discs if that's something that they're interested in. A lot of our kids bring hammocks. As crazy as our schedules are all the time, a lot of our group just likes to take a nap during their free time at camp. And so they can bring hammocks and do that. So that's a little bit of the tips on just packing and things of that sort. Make sure they bring bedding. Sleeping bag is easier, but some people prefer to bring like a sheet setup and a blanket and a pillow. Make sure you bring something for their dirty clothes, swim trunks, probably a couple towels, one for the shower and one for the lake is usually a good place to go in the rhythm of that. Earplugs if your kid is a sensitive sleeper, because you just don't know who in your cabin is going to snore. And there is like a 9 out of 10 chance that at least one person in there will snore. So if that's something that keeps you up, earplugs will be a great way for you to be able to get through that and handle that. I'm trying to think through a couple of the tips and some hacks and things that'll kind of help them get through the week. On cell phones and stuff, we don't have a cell phone policy. Just if it's a distraction, we do take it. Know that you can reach any of our youth staff and adult leaders at any time. Cell phone service is much better out there than it's ever been. What we count as a distraction is people like using phones in the middle of the night or using as a distraction or using it for bullying, or they're like scrolling TikTok in the middle of a worship service or something like that. We tell our leaders like, hey, if that's the case, we can take them up because that's just not why we're there. And so if you need something, you can reach out or give us a shout, but they can have their phones on them because we like them to take pictures and we like for them to have those memories and things like that, which does remind me of my last thing. Yes, it is church camp. Yes, we're gonna get to worship. We're gonna get to hear teaching from Tom Richter, who's a pastor in Alabama. He's phenomenal. We're gonna get to hear from Sean McDowell, who's one of the leading apologists in the country. We're gonna get to hear conversations on race relations from pastors in the DFW. We're gonna get to hear an author come in and talk about teenage anxiety, which is like a much bigger issue than even depression right now in the lives of not even just teenagers, but adults, and where we're at in 2021. And so she's going to talk about some of those things, which is going to be awesome. But it is still a camp of 900 teenagers, flawed people, and things like this. And my advice to you, and that is this: do not pack anything that you're afraid of getting stolen. And so in a world where things like Nintendo Switches exist and iPads and things like that, do not send your kid to camp with that kind of stuff. Expensive jewelry. Sometimes, girls are walking around with a ton of like Kendra Scott or something like that. And at the end of the day, or just $100 bills in cash that they're just leaving in their duffel bag in their room or whatever it is. But there have been years that stuff has got stolen. Things getting stolen is a possibility. And so AirPods, all that kind of stuff, leave at home, because we just do not have the time to stop what we're doing at camp and be on this all-out search for phones and iPads and Nintendo Switches and things like that. So they've got to be able to have the responsibility to keep up with their stuff, but also just don't bring anything extra that you're going to be like, oh, I brought this thing and now it's gone. And that it could happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened a couple times in the past at different churches that I've served at, this church, whatever. So just know that is a possibility, and consider that when packing your things. We do play a game called Collideageddon on the last night. If I were to try to explain it to you, I would fail. It's basically just massive dodgeball chaos, 400 v 400 teenagers painted red and blue. And I mean, just absolute craziness. In years past, we have never released what our color was ahead of time. And kids always go, we wish we knew what Collideageddon color we were. And so I'm going to pull up right now what our color is this year, which this year we are red team. So if you want to deck out in red stuff for that last night and bring a bunch of extra red stuff, red face paint, red hairspray, whatever, you're welcome to. You can go all out and wear a ton of red. You don't have to. We don't expect you to. But if that's something that you want to do, that'll be there for you. I'll send out in the next couple of days on the Remind, which if you do not have, I'll put the code in this chat of just a tournament breakdown, and we'll talk through tournaments and how many people play each day during free time and how to build teams and where to turn those in. And so that way you can kind of have tournament numbers ahead of time, which is also something that we haven't had historically. Parents, we do record all of the night sessions from Tom Richter. Those will be in a podcast for you after camp that we can get to you so you can listen to some of those sessions. He's hilarious, an incredible communicator, and it's a good way to be able to hear the gospel that your kid heard at camp so you can have some of those conversations when you come home. Other than that, I think that covers info. Check-in. We'll be back on Tuesday, usually between 1 and 2 p.m., but we'll send out a remind text to let you know. If you need anything in the next 2 days, my email is now in the chat section. And then you can also email Scarlett if I don't get to you, and her email is there. And then everybody should have Stephanie's because she's been sending out all of the stuff if you still owe money or paperwork or anything like that. And you can find all those online at our church website as well. This stream will be up, so if you know anyone that missed it and needs the info, you can share the link with them and they can watch it. If you have my number or if you have the Remind, you can also text back to the Remind and ask me any questions after hours, and I try to do pretty decently to get back to you. We're excited about camp. It's starting to feel a little bit of normalcy. Last year we got camp right before mask policies, and this year we get camp right after them. So it feels like we've really hit the sweet spot with Camp Collide. But we're excited about it. We can't wait to hang out with your kid. We hope that they're excited about it. And we know it's going to be a good 5 days.
Woohoo!
All right. We'll see you guys later.